All right, InvisiFrame time. Holy cow, they don't mess around. First of all, this is for the RockShox Pike for the 110. I ordered it in matte, so you can see, I'm trying to show you the detail of the lines. So I've heard people say that they need to do a replacement piece. So instead of just peeling off, my recommendation is to cut to size. So cut each piece out so you have a backing to keep, and then mark which side is the back. So that way you know the other side is what you need to make a pattern from. So that's for the shock. This is for the frame. There's so many fine bends. Like if you spent money on a bike, yeah, just spend the money and get protection for the bike. With the InvisiFrame, you specify either gloss or matte, and then for your frame size, this is for a large men's. So I'm thinking I'm going to cut out the individual frame pieces too. It's an extra step and it's going to take extra time, but I usually do these frame kits by myself, so I'm not stressed about having to make new pieces when it needs repair. I mean, it's there so when you crash, if it's a bad enough booger, you can just make a patch panel and get it fixed. So I'm gonna start cutting, and I'm gonna work on the fork first. Next, I transferred the instructions over to the back side. Oh my gosh, it's super critical. Make sure you're on the back. But I labeled everything per the directions on back. So when I cut the shape out, I will have an actual template to use in the future. I've got the pattern cut out now. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Obviously it's not perfect, but honestly, if you get the basic shape down, the fine tuning, yeah, it takes time, but you can see, as long as you're fairly consistent on the cut, it's not that hard. And the cool thing, InvisiFrame also included some extra crown spares. So those are scuff points. So again, now we're ready for the next step. And just finished up the second leg. Obviously there's still some air bubbles I'm working on, but this is a light adhesion with some of the baby shampoo is what they specify. They say corners and around stickers obviously don't fit super tight, but they fit better with time. Here's one that's dry, a little closer to being dried. They say edges take a little bit to set, then you can push them down. So that's it for the fork. The only thing I may add that's not included with a kit is usually on the center piece. I usually put a little tape up through this part right here just for rock that gets kicked up, and it's usually doesn't last forever, but keeps the fork looking nice. So that's probably the only thing I'll add. But overall, very happy with how the kit was cut, and I spec'd it in matte finish. Some people complain it is still too glossy. Honestly, I don't know if you'll see it on a regular day from standing distance away, so I'm not too concerned. Obviously blown out in light, you'll be able to see it a lot closer, but overall looks good. Now onto the frame. Holy crap. I don't know if I'm gonna get that done tonight. But until next time. The front fork has had a little bit to dry. So it's hard to see, especially with the light back behind it. I don't expect this to get better. It'll get a little better after 24 hours or so. But the big thing now is just no bubbles and any ends that need pushed in. Yeah, like even these, this was a really difficult bend. And you can see those went down really nice. So now I'm starting to cut the sheet for the frame. So on the instruction sheet, they go through and they call out the major patches. They don't identify some of these small ones, which, me being the anal person I am, it's gonna drive me nuts. They probably just are trying to use material that they normally wouldn't have, so whatever. Anyway, got the back of seat tube upper cut out as well as the down tube. The down tube actually has its own factory one on that you can see the edges right here. It's going to be hard to pick up. You can kind of see it. So I'll have to remove the lower guard, and I'm going to look at the factory one and see if I just put another layer over it. Man, that would drive me nuts. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to continue cutting this out. Anyway, the instructions say in a very specific order: back of seat tube upper first, top tube, down tube, head tube, left and right. Baby shampoo is working out really well. So yeah, that instead of Dawn, even if you're not using InvisiFrame, the baby soap is working out really good in their mixture. And that is for 750, I'm gonna get the measurements wrong unless I look. It is 5 milliliters of baby shampoo in a 1 liter spray bottle of water. So here I have, it's about 750 milliliters, and there's a teaspoon of baby shampoo in this, and it is absolutely perfect. I've cut out individual shapes. You can see some of them are quite detailed. They have split lines. Yeah, there's some junk that got on it. We'll see if rubbing alcohol takes that off. But I'm pretty much through the entire sheet up until this top row, and I've just been labeling as I cut out. So tonight is another install. So one of the things you hear them talk about in all the articles is the new chainstay chain guard. So it actually snaps off the back. It's like a rigid inner that snaps over from the inside, and there is one screw that holds it in the back. So overall, that's how you remove that. The first thing that they tell you to install is the right chainstay, just as a practice. So obviously you got to remove the guard. Okay, so now I've got right chainstay protector on. For those of you wanting to see detail of the kit, you can see, man, I'm sorry, steady hand here. It goes up underneath and runs the length all the way up here. Obviously corners take a little bit to dry, so they say even in the instructions, just wait for it to dry and then continue just to seat it home. That baby shampoo, man, makes such a huge difference. I laid my last set of frame protection with Dawn dish soap, and it just bubbles so much. You can see I just installed this. there's still a little bit of haze, and that will clear. Obviously, I'm using rubbing alcohol to clean the frame, but man, it makes such a big difference. Okay, and now on to the next step. All right, so their second official step is the rear of the seat. Here, let me grab a light. So this piece goes up the rear of the seat tube, and here you can see little notches that they give you, so it lays right around the outside, and then both sides fold around either side. It's cut around the side tube and then goes down into that back flap. After that, they say do the top tube. The top tube is an insane piece. If I were cutting my own, you can see it starts back there. It runs down along the bottom around each side. It goes along the top, back around the bottom. So you can see it here. And then runs clear up around the top tube, right up there. So again, baby shampoo, so it's still kind of hazy, but that will clear over 24 hours. Some of the cuts just on the first few, it's like these little tiny attention to detail that really sets the kit apart so far. Some of these cuts, I would have given up and just done a basic shape. So anyway, on to the next step. Next step is the bottom tube. So word of warning, Specialized has this lower bash guard. Make sure when you flip over your bike that you have your rear bottle or your bottom tube bottle holder out. There's this little captive nut. Annoyingly, the rear chainstay protector chain guard takes the largest, star nut size, and there's actually one smaller size here, and then a nut drops into the frame. So I've been spinning the frame around in the air, hopefully not messing up the tubes I've already done. Trying to get the nut out. It was getting stuck in the top tube and then the back of the frame. And then there's a captive nut on the bottom of the bottom bracket. So anyway, make sure that when you take this one out, you have your bottle out or your SWAT tube guard out, and hopefully it'll drop straight through. It looks like it'll line up and drop straight through. Save yourself some trouble there. Bottom tube went on well. Here you can see the factory one. It runs from there to right here. The InvisiFrame one runs clear down around this. Oh, sorry. I can't even see it myself. Around here. It goes clear around onto the the top side, past the SWAT, all the way up. This is probably making you sick, sorry. And then it goes clear up into this piece right here. So you're starting to see more of the coverage. Looking on the top side, all the way up past, again, up over the top. And then the bottom bearing guard goes here and then wraps around the top. So overall, fit is coming together. It went on nice enough that I think I'll be able to put the bash guard back on. I've done a crap ton. So you're looking at the upper. I cut my own on previous bikes, and on the larger tubes you're like, yeah, this hole would have been a pain in the butt, or yeah, you can see how much work I've done on the rear. Sorry it's so shaky, I'll take my time. But when you start doing the rear linkage, and yeah, you can see bubbles, but those will come out. When you really start looking at where they've steered the protection, it's like, there is no way I could have cut a piece that would have had all of these bends and had like that wrap. Some of those complex wraps are the hardest thing to do. And then by far, if you're wrapping one of these carbon bikes, Specialized, Stumpy 2019, this piece is the toughest one to do, because you have this radius here, and then you have these two little ears that flip up. Do this piece last. You'll need all of the practice to get that one right. But I've done, you can see, I've done this midsection now, and the ends wrap around nice. Upper section, has already been done. Again, I showed that earlier. So really on this rear, there isn't a piece that is not covered. Yeah, that piece behind the brake isn't covered, but honestly, they give you, I don't know how many extra pieces. If you are that anal, there's all of these extra pieces that are unmarked. There's some other ones I cut out somewhere. Oh, over here. So they give cable rub patches. Tons of extras. Anyway, where I'm at now, I gotta do head tube left and right. So I anticipate that those are gonna kind of be pains in the butts. So I've kind of saved those. We'll see how they go on. The biggest thing I see in some of these other videos is people are like, oh crap, I need a guide for how they fit. But honestly, that's why you mix the baby soap solution. It allows you to slide it. You can kind of place it with the paper backing on and kind of slide it around and figure out where it goes. But some of these, really obscure angles and places where the pieces go, the tack to take is just slide around through the middle and kind of find the midpoint. They say start in the middle in the instructions and then slide to the outside. And the soap mixture that they gives you plenty of time to work with it before, it locks on. If this is your first time, I can't imagine putting more soap in to give yourself more time to get these things, locked into place. I think it would be frustrating to have more soap, but if you found that these were locking into place too fast, you could add more soap, they say in the instructions. And a little bit more soap just to give yourself a little more time. But anyway, I'm very happy with the Invisit frame. It's been a couple nights of like cutting stickers out so I have replacements and whatever, but the trails are all wet here in Dallas, so it's not like there's much else I could be doing right now besides chilling in the garage, listening to some tunes, installing some InvisiFrame. So anyway, I'm going to start on the head tube and I'll show you guys the results. Okay, so after the back end, I move to the front end of the bike. Let me get a light. So, looking at the detail here, my light is dying here. So, the front end, the seams are awesome. So there's actually a couple different pieces, and it's hard to get the seams, so they are equidistant all the way around. But you can see how they worked the brake here. Not happy with how some of these splits came through, but they are pretty tough to work so they're even. I think it was a little better on this side between the three. So after the multiple pieces on the front of the bike, there were also several pieces both for this section of the single, I don't know, support. There were also several pieces through here. So there's one on this side and then one on the other side. The other side actually goes back further into the support. And then there's also a little piece on this side. So overall, the front end went together pretty easy. Again, the frame is a gloss, and looking at the forks is a matte. So just be mindful of that when you're ordering. Again, I don't know if I ever showed it in the other videos I shot, but I did do a detail piece right here, which is probably impossible to see. Again, just to make it a little easier to protect the fork from rock kick-ups. But front's done, back's done, frame is done. I did a couple of dorky little protections behind the chain, just because when you do skip a chain, it seems like it always attacks this part of the rear chainstay, and there was nothing there. They had a couple pre-cut out pieces that I used way back up in there, and then I cut a piece just to fill the gap, because I figure I'm going to be replacing that the most frequently. Overall, again, I think this one was probably the toughest to put in, but I'm happy they wrapped it over the top, because you know that's where dirt is going to pack up. That's a wrap. Join me next time and we'll look at some of the things I'd do a little different and a recap on the install. Also look at some of the crank protection that I'm doing this time, and also some of the final setup items. Thanks for joining. See you next time.